I want to say
I'll
something.
talk to one. Go
Can
ahead.
y'all hear me? I'm echoey. Well, first I can't stay. I gotta leave at a quarter after, so I'm gonna miss y'all today. Going bowling with my children, but you know what? One of the scriptures I thought of, you were talking about some of the scriptures in the beginning and be fruitful and multiply. I think a great scripture that would have been nice there is from John. It's one of my favorite. It says, um, greater love hath no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friend. And so even though you talk about like you may not marry your best friend, I think, in my opinion, that when you marry someone of the opposite sex, that person is your best friend of the opposite sex. Otherwise, why would you marry them and not your your other best friend? Okay. I
As
mean,
in
it has to be
feelings,
come.
platonic feelings. I mean, so somebody might say, oh, they're a man might say their female friend, oh, that's the best friend in the world. They're great, but I just don't have that romantic feeling. I mean, those things happen a lot. I mean,
So
thoughts?
so you marry the person that you have the romantic feeling with, but not the platonic. I think that you
Of
should
course.
have both. I think that you should have both with the person that you marry. But yeah, that's it. I think that you should marry that person because they are your friend and you can, yes, be romantic with them and intimate with them too. Um it for that poses a problem because this is the thing. If you have like, I'll speak about me. I don't have any I have male friends. I have male friends, but I would maybe call them associates because I don't really spend late nights with them. I don't do anything like that. We're basically single people. We're Christian. And because we're not married, we do the things that, like I might cook a meal or we might go out and have a nice discussion or something, but we're not doing like couple stuff, because in the absence of being married, I still enjoy and welcome the input of a man in my life, and that person enjoys the company and input of a woman. But when you're looking at, okay, I met someone and that is a person now that you're looking at like this is a candidate for marriage, maybe what is the difference between that person that you always hang with? Is it physical? Is it just physical, like sexual? I want to sleep with this person, or is it something else?
It needs to be all of it. I mean, like you said, you need to have the romantic attraction, but there needs to be a lot of compatibility there as well, and it can't just be for because you're thinking with your hormones, for instance.
No, I agree with that. I think you have to have both. If you don't have both, I don't think it's going to work because, like I said, I mean, you have to have the friendship companion, building the future, have the desire for the future, but then at the same time, you got to look at them and be like, man, I want to take your clothes off and do stuff to you. And if they basically if it ain't like that, then it ain't gonna work. Sheila shook her head. She was like, "I get it."
Well, so I'll say I have male friends that, I mean, like I have a couple that we've been friends for 30 years. I mean, I've known them since we were freshmen in college, and we generally just kind of call each other family. So usually when they introduce me, I'm their sister or whatever, primarily because women, have a problem with women being friends with men, but um I have friends like that where, we get each other, but we're not compatible in that way. Like the way that, like one of my friends, the way he carries himself, the way he is in his relationships, we wouldn't make it. Even though we're great friends. And I mean, we cuss each other out, we don't speak, but we know that if we need each other, then we're going to be there for each other. And so when you meet people, sometimes you just have that immediate like, okay, we get each other, we click, and I mean, and that makes you kind of best friends because you understand them in a way that another person wouldn't. And so he's been married twice now, but his wives or anybody else, they're never going to understand him like I do because I know him since he was 18 years old.
Okay, let me
But
ask you a
at the
question,
same
Tavon.
time, yeah, what's up?
This is important. Did you already have or attempt to have a relationship with him?
No, we never had a
Okay.
romantic relationship.
And have you ever been in a situation with that person where the lights are low? Because see, that's a determining factor. Who called it off? You or him?
I called it off. And the reason but see, this is the thing. The reason the situation occurred was because he was devastated by his first wife leaving him. And some men bury their pain in the next woman. It just so happened that I was there, as that's my role sometimes with my male friends, is that their male friends, they're just like, oh, just get another one. Why are you worried about, they don't want to do all the emotional stuff. And so I'm the soft place to land, like, okay, they can cry on my shoulder and really say, how they're hurt. Whereas with their male friends, they just like, go holler at her, just keep having sex until you feel better. And so because I have been there for him, that was why we ended up in a situation. And because I knew that it wasn't about me, he was just in pain and I would just happen to be there. That, I said, hey, and so when I stopped it, then he just broke down and started crying. And he's like, I'm so lonely. I don't want to go home. Nobody's there, So I think, and I mean, I think that that's part of being a friend, though, is to understand that a person is vulnerable and not take advantage. I know some women that are married right now to men that they took advantage of the situation. They knew he was vulnerable and they was like, yeah, so, I'm going to exploit this opportunity. That's just not the friend that I am.
Can I say something? So I was on YouTube and a guy, he made a video about that. He said, can men and women be friends? And his answer was no, unless it's his wife, because he gave the reason. When you look up the definition of a friend is someone that you tell your deepest, darkest, secrets to. You share a lot with that person. And in his mind, he was thinking the only person I should really be doing that with is my wife, especially if I'm married, because I don't want to confide in another woman, my deepest, darkest concerns or secrets. And I can't do that with my wife. So I kind of understood what he was saying. He was like, if you're trying to find a wife, then yes, but he considered them as acquaintances. He has a lot of female acquaintances, but he was like, when I think of a friend, I think of someone that I'm intimate with as far as sharing my secrets with, staying up late, going out to dinner with, stuff like that. And he was just saying that the only person he really wants to do that with would be his wife, but everybody else he would just keep as, basically network. They just network. So I understood what he was saying, especially if you do decide to get married. I feel at that point, do you feel you should kind of put a boundary if you have friends of the opposite sex? Because, it depends if your partner will be comfortable with you continuing like a deep friendship. You don't want, I guess, that jealousy to come up, or you start thinking there could be something more. So I don't know. I could understand what he was saying.
I think I agree with you, Mo, because then it, like, when it's somebody of the opposite sex like that, you divulged all your secret. They know you better than any potential person you're going to meet.
Right.
So when does it cut itself off? Now you don't tell me your secrets anymore. Now you don't talk to me and come to me anymore. And now I have my wife, but the wife or the fiance doesn't have the history. So I think it's a setup. And especially I have girlfriends, I have sisters. When I have had a breakup or something, I go to them. I purposefully don't go to the men because it creates an additional situation, because I want my husband to be that person.
That's why we call each other family. And I mean, we treat each other like I'm their kids' aunts, they're my kids' uncle. I mean, that we're family because we have history like family. And I don't look at my actual siblings in a sexual way. I don't look at them in a sexual way. And I think that's, I understand what you guys are saying, but I think it's idealistic when it comes to, okay, over time, you're going to be in situations where you're going to lean on who is there for you. And if your girlfriends are not there for you and that dude is, then he is. And if he needs you at some point, are you going to not be there because, well, he's a man? That's your friend. Y'all held each other down. So I don't think that it has to always be about sex just because you're the opposite sex. I think that even when it's like, okay, when I was married, and as I said, I mean, I've been friends with these guys since we were 18. So they just became friends with my husband. They played chess together. They went to the strip club together. They did stuff together and got to know each other. And, you know, so, and if he had his female friends or whatever, yeah, come on over to dinner, because everything I need to know about your relationship is going to be told to me by the way you interact with each other. I'm not scared. I'm not, you know, I won't say I'm not insecure, because everybody has insecurities, but I also know that you're going to do what you want to do because you're grown. So if I put my head in the sand and act like you're not going to have friends with, you know, be friends with anybody but men, or, you know, anybody but women, if you're a woman, that's not really realistic, because as you get older, you develop bonds with people. And it's kind of unfair to expect your spouse to now just totally forget about that person that was there when you needed them, because now you're in this marriage. That doesn't mean that, you know, you're going to be necessarily as close because you're getting close with this spouse. But at the same time, if you guys had a relationship where they're there for you, you're there for them, they shouldn't expect you to be like, oh yeah, I'm married now, so I'm sorry that you're on the side of the road, but I can't, you know, that's just, you got to call somebody else.
No, I'm go ahead, Mo. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, I think he was just saying there should be like a slight shift, I guess, especially if you do feel in your heart that you want to become married. During that stage, then the person you marry, you should put above whoever has been in your life. Not saying you got to cut them off, but you should put them above, because this is now the person that you got to really do life with. And it's like these other people, yes, that's network. Those are acquaintances. But if I'm choosing to marry someone, then I want to make either him and her that best friend, you know, that it just should be like a slight shift, I think he was saying. But also like,
go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and 8 times out of 10, at least from my experience, like 8 times out of 10, if you do try to have a platonic relationship, eventually somebody ends up kind of catching feelings. So that could be a little iffy too, especially if you really don't see that person to be romantic. So I don't know, I guess you can just pick and choose. It really just depends on the person. But I guess when you do feel ready to get married, I think he's saying there has to be like a slight shift.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I'll say. I agree with the shift. I think that there needs to be a shift. What was you gonna say?
I think it's during the courtship, that's one of the things you gotta talk about. Just like, you know, money or any other area of life, you gotta say, how do you feel about, you know, friends that are of the opposite sex, and try to find somebody who's in the general vicinity that you are. Because I think that's where a lot of friction comes from, where somebody's had a friend since they were in high school and it makes the other spouse insecure. And then now they, you know, that's a point of conflict. Or say that spouse meets somebody that's after they met their wife or married their wife, and they click. Now they, you know, well, oh, I've had my friend since high school. Now you hanging out with this person. Well, we just friends. Well, we friends, you know. So it's like, you know, you want to have that defined, or at least have a general idea where somebody's at. So it's not like you know, just something you bump into later on, and it has a lot of momentum behind it.
I think I agree with that too. Is it Chris or C? Just say C. Jones.
Chuck.
Oh, Chuck. Okay, because the reason why I even brought it up is because, and I'm gonna make this personal, it's very important who you choose as your friends prior to being married, as well as your spouse, and making sure that y'all are on the same page on that. Because like I said, I'll make this personal. I have my older son, his father and I have known each other since we were 7 years old. We grew up together since elementary, went to middle school together, went to high school together. His family knows my family. He walked me home from school every day. He was my best friend, and I was his best friend. When we were 22 years of age, well, when we were 20, he met an older woman. They got married when he was 22. Um, because of that, I backed off as the friend out of respect for her. Because even though there were things that I knew about the family that she would probably never understand because she wasn't there when it happened, when he would come to me, I would say, you married this woman. I have to move. I have to remove myself because so that they can grow and get to that place because this is who you've chosen for a life partner. You know, and I think that that's a proper thing to do and try to head it off at the pass before it comes down to it. Because when they married, it was almost like she didn't have the history. She doesn't know a lot of things, but you have to start somewhere. And so when that wasn't developed, I'm telling myself now, he did step outside of his marriage. But guess who she looked at and she thought it was that he was with? Me, but it was never me. It wasn't me. But the thing is, he needed somebody. He's looking for an outlet. They never established that. Now, I would have felt bad if I did not be responsible or courteous from woman to woman, because I'm like this. I don't want any woman looking at me like I'm interfering with her marriage. So I said, I'm the one who's going to step back. And I believe that that's biblical. I do. Because again, you have your friends, you have your associates, and then you have your spouse. And everybody needs to stay in their proper space with a little bit of overlay. But out of respect for the union of marriage, you as a person, male or female, you need to remove yourself because so you don't become that crutch.
Yeah, like I say, I'm going to agree with a lot of that, just simply because I know from my perspective, I have a lot of female friends. And, you know, when I first got, you know, like I said, when I was married before, you know, all of mine I was lucky, they just didn't live in Atlanta. You know, so they were living in other states, and I would talk to them.
Why is it lucky?
Well, I mean, because I didn't have to deal with, because I think that's really when you start dealing with these boundaries, that's what people are really talking about. It's the boundary of saying, okay, you know, Davita is in Baltimore and I'm in Baltimore, and now I'm feeling bad, so I can go over to her house. You know, I can
physical access.
Yeah. And then, you know, and I think that that's one of those things people have to, you know, really kind of get in their head. And they also have to, again, you also got to be real about, you know, whether or not you're attracted to the person. Mm-hmm. I think, you know, people have to, you know, be real about that. You know, some people, you know, let's be real. You got that one friend and you like that one friend so ugly. You just like, you know, all we ever going to be is friends. I'm going to holler at you. You know, I got your back, blah, 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 dap it out. But then you had that other friend like, ooh, they weren't married. You know, I'd be hollering. So, you know, I think you have to kind of know that. And if you can put that boundary there, I think you can, you know, keep the friendship. But if you can't put that boundary there, yeah, you're going to end up making a mistake because every relationship has highs and lows. And so sooner or later, your spouse, whoever, no matter how perfect they are, they're going to make you mad. And so, you know, you can't be immature and just run after somebody that you don't need to be with.
Well, I think friendship is the key in the whole thing. And being that if you really want your friend to be happy, you're going to help them and support their relationship. As in, you're not going to do something to undermine it if you really care about them. So like Davita was saying, if it means, you know, taking a step back or things like that, you're going to do it because you care. That's your friend for real. You really don't want to harm or hurt them. You want them to be happy. And I mean, a lot of the times that my friends were in relationships, I was actually arguing her side because as a man, he couldn't understand her perspective and he couldn't talk to her the way I could talk to him because I knew him. And I'm like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I know how you are. So I know you did this, and this is how a woman takes that. This is why you need to, this is how you need to actually do this, that, or the other. And you need to talk to her in this kind of way and not this self-righteous, whatever it is. I mean, depending on the friend, because I know how they come at people. But at the same token, no matter what, it's always, I appreciate the fact that, we're friends, but you really need to be talking to her. Not
Yeah,
to me.
but Tashawn, you're also at a certain maturity level. And I think it just depends upon the maturity level of everybody involved. So you're able to see that. But I think a lot of men and women out here, it's kind of like, Danny just said in the chat. Some people have their little secret stash, that they're holding on to, hoping that, things might change and they might be able to do that moment of weakness because they married the wrong person and all the other kind of stuff instead of being mature in their current situation. But I think Sean had to say, has something to say. So go ahead, Sean.
I can say for me, I have one friend who is a female that I've always said, if it came between me having to choose that one best friend or someone I'm talking to, I'm honestly going to get rid of the person I'm talking to because we have been friends for that long since high school and have been there for each other through relationships. We both have had a situation where each of us was dating a person and we saw that it wasn't going to work out, and still we were there trying to help to secure them in their relationship. Then after it was over, we both had that moment like, I'm so happy that relationship is done because I saw a long time ago that wasn't going to work. But I think, as like somebody else said, you try to support them in that effort. But the other thing too, we both also respected each other's time when it came to who we were talking to. If I'm with an individual that I'm talking to, it was understood, okay, I may not be available in this moment. Um, and then at the same token, I would also say that she is the one person who would be the female friend that I would take a phone call from after 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock is my cutoff time. But it goes back to being a situation where, like you said in your presentation, since that's my best friend, if I'm getting married, now that's our best friend. It wouldn't be a thing where that's my friend and then that's the only person that you can't meet. But she would have already been introduced as well. There would have already been a relationship between the two of them away from me that's able to develop so that it's understood of who they are and what they both mean to me in my life. Because if you can't do that, then yeah, that is going to become an issue. Um, and then the other thing too, it is that one female friend that get that privilege to have that kind of access to me. I think that's another issue. Is it's always another one female friend that pops up and say, "Oh, well, let me introduce you to this person," or "I have this friend here," and by the end of you got 20 different opposite sex friends that have exclusive access that that one friend has.
And then
Get it.
And Keiko's got her hand up.
Yeah, she does. I'm gonna call on Hickles really quick, Seconda, and then you can talk, Richard. Go ahead, Seconda.
Hola.
Hola.
I think we have to remember the culture also. Just because one thing I realize is just because you may be born in the same country or you may be the same ethnicity, you have different cultures, you have different upbringings, and some people already have their best friends. And I know that you may want to be that best friend, and it may happen and it may not happen. You have to deal with the security, deal with the insecurity or the securities of yourselves, and establish. Are you willing to be that spouse or significant other and the extra best friend, you know, you have to establish that, you know, um not everybody believes in their spouse being their best friend because they do want a division, not a division, but that breaking area. And those are, you know, those are just questions that you may have to ask yourself. How important is it? Is the best friend not being the best friend? Is it worth not having the relationship, or is it worth going for and establishing and praying and believing that eventually we'll get there?
No, I'm definitely with that. I hear that. So what do you have to say, Mr. Richard?
I was going to say, first thing is to get friends is to, like you don't see it anymore like you used to, is to be social for your neighbors or friends to be seeing how you're doing as the weather changes, how to go through the weather, or have any trouble or anything, then the friendship build. And if you like to do the same thing, going walking, fishing, or anything else, that start doing things together over time and not rushing anything, but just everything starts building up as everybody likes to do everything together.
That's true, because I mean that's the whole point. Is like I said, to get past that loneliness, you know, you got to have, you know, friends. And actually, as single people, that's what we have to, you know, really rely on each other now to be able to be, you know, fight off that loneliness. But as we get with those, you know, whoever you get with, you know, over time, you're going to be spending more time with them, at least hopefully, because you should be, you know, growing new bonds. And, you know, for all the new people, y'all know how I feel about, you know, staying too long in relationships that ain't working, or at least dating that's not working. I just don't believe you should force it. If it ain't working, it ain't working. Get out. You know, find the next person, because you might have to go through a couple hundred frogs kissing, you know, quote unquote, in order to find your prince. I did want to talk on Sean's question at the very beginning about this whole thing that he had in the chat, which I thought was kind of funny. When he was talking, okay, or maybe Sean said it, well, both of them said, okay, easier access to sex, question mark. From what I understand, single people have more sex more often than married couples. Is there truth to it or a false narrative? And then Tashawn came back and said, easier access doesn't equate to frequency. Laugh out loud. And then Sean came back and said, agree, which supports my statement and question. And then Tashawn comes back and she says, depends on who you marry. Okay, so what I have actually heard is exact opposite. I've actually heard that married people have more sex than single people.
Who told you?
Huh?
Who told you that? I never heard that from
No, I've always heard that.
I've heard that,
it's not
and
about
they sleep better.
Yeah, well, it's like this. If you're single, I know I've been single, and I'm putting my crap out there, but you know I'm partially Christian, so that's part of it too. I've been single for a year and a half, and in that time, my sex life is pretty much null. When I was married, I was probably having sex around 4 to 5 times a week. So I was having a heck of a lot more sex when I was married than since I've been single. And unless you're just that freaky person that can lay down with anybody that you don't really know and you don't really care about, I would believe that, you know, you would be in that group that basically is saying that. Now, people talk about the excitement of sex, they talk about this and that and the other, and I do think that kind of wanes over time. But again, this is just me, this is me talking here, is just that a lot of times people let sex go because of them. Okay, I'm just gonna be honest. If you're not keeping your bedroom interesting, then that's on you. And I have not ever run into a person that does not want to have sex if the sex is good.
I was about to say, look, me and Tijon like, I mean, there's extenuating circumstances. It could be illness, it could be tiredness from work. I mean, stuff like that could interfere.
But that's like way out there, that onesie twosie. I mean, Davida, if you basically got a man halfway throwing it down and halfway giving you your good stuff, you can't tell me you ain't gonna be like, ooh, I can't wait.
Oh yeah, I would never deny him.
I'm gonna do
His
just like
rights.
Davita. I'm
I ain't
gonna
talking
go
about
ahead and
deny his rights. I'm just saying if he's good, I'll put it this way. If he's bad, you can say, I would never deny him. I'll try to have sex with him once a week. If he's good, then I think he would probably get it more than once a week.
Yep.
Of course.
I'm gonna tell you just like Davita. I'm gonna be personal about it. I was not the one withholding in my marriage. Okay. That was and the reason was what he always said was your mouth. You just you say stuff that piss me off, and then I don't want to.
It get under my skin. I heard
And
that.
my thing was, if you love me, just because you don't like me right now, that ain't got nothing to do with nothing.
It doesn't.
If you're angry, take it out of me. It's okay. Go ahead and show me how angry you are. But no,
you hurt his feelings, Deshaun. You was hurting his feelings.
That's right.
Deshaun had some role playing.
All right, so
again, and Deshaun didn't know how to do the makeup sex. She didn't know how to be nice and be like, "I'm sorry," so she could get her some makeup sex.
Okay, so then let's take it back to your second or your third slide. Let's be spiritual. So in that case, right, because again, I've never been married, but I've had all these 40 years to prepare for it. But I know people get on your last nerves, okay? And so the bottom line is we're not getting married. When we take those vows, we're actually making a vow to God, okay? And so that should trump however you're feeling about your spouse. Now, I know it's probably easier said than done, but again, before you get married, you need to think about when that man or that woman is getting on my very last nerves, am I mature enough to still do my part and put my feelings to the side because this is what I promised God, okay?
Yep.
So that is something people need to think about prior to. And so that's why I say I'm anxious for nothing. I don't rush into anything. And I would encourage my brothers and sisters not to as well, because that person might not have did the dishes and you keep telling them to do this and that, and they don't do it. But then at night, they're like, can I get some? You have to do it.
And that's what I said, Davita. Do your husbandly duty.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I can say I don't know who y'all talking about. I mean, I believe that there are guys out there like that. Don't get me wrong. And I know, like, say for me, I am divorced. So to go to Davita's point, so I do think it takes a certain amount of patience when you're with somebody, and there's a lot of trials and errors, that you have to go through when you're married. But what I'm also talking about is in a general sense. I'm not talking about, really streamline one thing or two things, because one of the main things that we talk about in this group a lot is trying to find ways to find better people for us. And then once we find those better people for us, trying to give them what they need. Okay, because at the end of the day, if you are with a very emotional person, okay, and like I say, there's some people on here that are a little bit more emotional than others, and then I'm basically like, girl, you ain't done this, you ain't done that, blah, 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 and I done cussed her out for 30 minutes, and then I'm like, well, come on over here, I want to have sex with you. She's gonna be like, no. Because there is an emotional piece that we have to do when we're dealing with another person. That's why you want to get rid of these people. Like I say, in the very beginning, they can't keep up with your emotional ways. Y'all know I'm an 831 and I talk about it all the time. As an 8, I talk a lot of stuff. Okay, that is what it is. One of the young ladies that I talked to, she even told me, she was like, you just blunt. Everything just come out your mouth. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, there's some women who love that because they always know where they stand.
That's right.
There's other women, they will, that hurts their feelings.
Right.
Oh, and I was going to say.
Go ahead, Rich. What you got to say?
I was going to say, on my part, I'm looking for a woman or a man to get together with me to Bible study with me. Not have sex, but just do Bible study and go walking or go exercise with me and do things. I've been single for 11 years and just trying to find people to do things with in both sexes, just to get together.
That speaks to something Bashan was saying about when you get older.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
The companionship piece is more important,
Well, I think companionship is honestly most important period. I think even when you're younger, because if the companionship is not there, it goes like back to what Deshaun was saying. Then you start losing sex. People don't want to have sex with you if they don't feel comfortable with you. That's part of it. Sex is a very intimate thing. You know, you're giving yourself to the other person, and you're in a process of creation, a creation that is a lifetime event. You know, and when we're younger, you know, I know at least from a guy's perspective, and I can't speak for all guys, I can only speak for me. But, you know, when I was younger, you know, my testosterone's up there so high and it's pumping at such a high level that I'm not thinking about that. I don't care. You know, in that moment, I don't care about the lifetime of what I'm doing. But, you know, now that I'm 40 plus, you know, I care. Oh, yeah, I care now.
Yeah,
you know, huh?
I was about to say, I mean, yeah, when you mature, because eventually what you do to her is going to affect you some kind of way anyway. You know, we are all self-preservationists, whether we want to say that or not. You know, the old saying, when mama's happy, everybody happy.
Yeah.
So you make sure that person is happy, because ultimately it's going to affect your happiness.
Well, yeah, but that's why, like I say, it's so important to me just to really kind of get in with people, understand them, understand where they're going, because communication is such a big issue. If you're not communicating properly, and again, we talk about this, you know, again, for all the new people, y'all know how I repeat for all the new people, because Tiffany's new, even though she was in one of my Bible studies a long time ago. Hey, Tiffany. You know, communication is really important, because sometimes you could be saying one thing and you think you're saying this one thing, but then the other person interprets it totally differently, you know, because of the way their personality is, their background is, and stuff like that. So Mr. Mike up there, he's been quiet. You know, we don't like the guys to be quiet. I told you the ladies like to hear from the men. So what's all this doing to you up there, Mr. Mike?
I'm just taking it in, you know, listening to different perspectives. I think whether it be a friendship or marriage, it's mostly up to those people involved. And it's something that when you talk to someone, you get to know them, you see what's important to them, they see what's important to you, and you kind of go from there. I don't think everything is the same for each and every person. Every experience is different. It just all depends on what's important to that person, and being able to compromise with them.
Okay, I like that. So anybody else want to talk that hasn't talked before we move on? T, Tawana, Tiffany, you want to talk? Oh, she said she's gone.
Sure. No, that was an accident.
Oh, okay.
I'm loving what I'm hearing from everybody. Just, yeah, it is great different perspectives on things. I wanted to touch back on when we were talking about the friendships and the boundaries and things like that. And something you said, Joseph, about everybody has that one friend where it's like, oh, no, you ugly, so I would never want to get with you or whatever. But we got that cute friend, blah, blah, blah. And so one thing I wanted to say about that part is ugly or attractive. If you allow someone in your space, your emotional space long enough, it's like, and you're allowing them to share their heart with you about their life, and you're doing the same thing, you can eventually start to feel a certain way about them. And I speak from personal experience. This dude, he was the one I'd consider the ugly one in the group, but he was going through a really bad time. Don't laugh, but he was going through a really bad time.
I was waiting for somebody to say this, so go ahead.
He was, though. He, you know, but I was also going through a tough time in my life at the time. So it was like, oh, okay, you know, so we're talking all the time. He started calling me all the time, like much more than usual, you know, and he was just going through some things, divorce and all of that. And so I found myself having feelings for somebody I never would have imagined having feelings for. And now we don't even talk. And that's because I had to back away because he couldn't start to separate the two, because we had considered, you know, a relationship and stuff. But it was like, okay, well, we need to pray about this and find out what God is saying about this before we move any further, before we invest anymore emotionally. And because we lived in different cities. So this was strictly over the phone. I hadn't actually seen him in person in a while. But yeah, it was one of those things. Okay, God said no. And we tried to maintain the friendship. I was doing fine because it was like, okay, God, you saying no, then boom. And gradually my feelings like that started to wane and I had zero romantic feelings left. But with him, he seemed like he was okay. But then every time I turned around, something would trigger and he would go back to, oh, remember when we were talking about this and remember. And he said, you know, sometimes I still wish I could be with you. This was like 5 years later. I'm like, okay, no. So that was when I knew the boundaries had to be set. And then I ended up having to set them to where it was like, okay, dude, you can't handle us talking at all.
I'm so glad you said that, Tiffany. I was waiting because you're right. It has nothing to do with their physical. When it's emotional, the Bible says the heart among all things is treacherous. Okay, so it depends on how you're feeling. And it's something I learned a long time ago, which has helped me to remain in the state that I'm in right now, single and celibate. And it is that emotions oftentimes, and I hate to break it down and make it not spiritual, but our emotions can be scientific and it's based off of the amount of hormones in our body. That hormone that makes you feel that lovey-dovey, you can get the same thing when you eat some chocolate. Okay. And I mean, it's true. It's the same hormone. It's not dopamine, it's the other one. But they change. Our hormones fluctuate throughout the day. So if somebody catch you at a moment, they might look real good right then. And then before you know it, you're sleeping with that person, or I won't even say sleeping with that person, you have revealed to them something about you that in another circumstance, on another day, you wake up the next morning, you're like, why did I tell them that?
Exactly. And that's how it is. And that's what I'm saying. When you begin sharing pieces of your heart, and I don't mean to tell them, oh, I feel this way about you, but no, just things that are going on in your life.
Right.
And you start to have compassion for them on a level that's just, you know, crazy. Because like, dag, that happened to you. Dang, that happened to you. And you just start to care about them in a way that just really intensifies, you know, your feelings that you didn't have before for them. Right. So it's like boundaries. You need to just have them ready in your pocket.
Right. And also look at, you have to, as an individual, as a single, you need to know what your goal is, because your goal will determine the decisions that you make on this level. You know, like, okay, what am I really looking for in a mate? Is what, you know, Jay talks about and everything. And you have to say, if I'm looking for this in a mate, I'm not going to continue to spend time and talking and divulging airing my laundry or whatever, or spending late nights, especially if you struggle with keeping your hands to yourself and stuff. You're not going to put yourself in that position, you know, and the next morning you wake up. I mean, I know me, I'm like, oh, I'm glad I didn't go over there, because something could have went down, you know. But, you know, just stay on the phone and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, that it's not about physical at all. It's about the emotional state.
I kind of agree with what a lot of you all are saying. I think it's just human nature to connect with one another, especially if it's someone of the opposite sex. So if you're spending time with this person, as everybody has been saying, and divulging secrets and your innermost thoughts and your fears, and you feel vulnerable enough to share that with somebody, that really should be your spouse. I know that Steve Harvey always says that that men and women can't be friends. And the reason that he says that is because one party is always attracted to the other, you know, at some point in time or another. Or he always likes to say that men at some point thought about being with that woman in some type of way. Don't know if that's true. I'm not a man, but I kind of agree with him. I think that, you know, there's always one party that's attracted to the other. So if you enter into a relationship that's going to be a source of conflict, because your new person, the new person that you're dating or courting or whatever, is going to feel some kind of way because you already have a bond that they're not going to be able to penetrate and get through. Especially if that person is going to turn to and lean towards that friend to confide in. So I just really do think that it works best, I think, when you are best friends with your spouse, and because that's really what it's supposed to do. You're supposed to be, if you go biblically, we're gonna be cleaving to that person. So you're leaving everything else behind. So it's just a sacrifice that you have to make. I'm not saying that I don't know. I guess I'm not saying that you can't have a conversation with somebody that you might have been friends with over the years since high school or whatever, but I think you really put yourself at risk of, damaging your marriage and having something go on, because as everybody has said, if you get into an argument with your spouse or your significant other, you're going to run to that friend, and that's going to cause a problem. So I just those are my thoughts.
I agree. I love that, Tawana.
Let me just share this, and I'm not gonna to sugarcoat it. I obviously have very strong feelings about this because absolutely I've had a problem with all my male friends and somebody that they were seeing, and I was the one driving that male friend around trying to find that woman to, because he was trying to make up with her or whatever. I'm the one that was actually on that woman's side, even though she didn't know it. But at any rate, this is the thing. Scripture does not say that we're supposed to be best friends. Cleaving does not mean best friends. And I think that people don't really appreciate the sacrifice of the difference between being friends with somebody and being one with somebody. I mean, you think, because the thing is that if this was a friend before you met them, they already had the choice to hit it and quit it several times. If they really wanted that man or that woman, they could have been done that and decided they was over with it before they ever knew that spouse that they met years later even existed. So that's already been decided, determined, done, over with, and this is where we're at, and that's the end of it. And that's the thing that has always been like, okay, if I really wanted this person, you think I would have waited 15 years till you met him to decide, you know what, now that she like him, maybe he done been through so many women before he met you. That's not gonna be the factor that changes a real friend's mind. But the other thing is, don't underestimate, as we talked about in all of those slides, you're comparing a best friend, like, oh, I'm confiding in this person or sharing, vulnerabilities with this person, who they were doing that before they met the spouse. So, I mean, who are they supposed to be vulnerable with but a friend until they get married? But then they choose to sacrifice their oneness of having their own decisions, their own control over everything, to be with this other person. So I don't care how close a friend you are, that's never going to compare to you saying, hey, if you got all of this debt, that's our debt. If you got bad spending habits, then we got bad spending habits. If you want, to do this or do that, if you want to quit your job and go back to school, all of these things, those are like, what did it say at the beginning? You're ready to give up your life. That's not a friend. You're not giving up your life for a friend. But you're doing all of that for a spouse. And so that to me is so much more significant than being a best friend with somebody. Because you can be a best friend and be like, dang, I hope you find that bill money. Oh, dang, I'm sorry that happened to you, because it didn't happen to us because we ain't together. But if something happens to your loved one that you are sharing a bed, a home, a life, a bank account with, I mean, how can that be compared to somebody being your best friend? Oh, because so-and-so told me that, their feelings was hurt. That means that nullifies all of that. This person that you saying that you're going to have children with, you trusting them to raise your kids or provide for you, or, I mean, these are way bigger than a best friend.
All right.
I get what you're saying, Sean. I really do. I guess what I'm thinking of, I'm also thinking of, though, like, let's say the wife. So like in the example that you gave earlier, You were saying that you had a friend and he had gone through a situation where I think you said he was going through a divorce, and then you guys were together and he was in a vulnerable state, and he at that point was physically attracted to you so much so that he made a move. So now let's go fast forward. Now he
wait. Let me just interject this first. You understand that he was not attracted to me. I would just happen to be a woman in physical proximity to me.
See, I think but for everything to work though, for him to move,
there was an attraction.
There has to be some attraction. I don't think that men, absolutely, I don't think that men's physical anatomy is going to respond to somebody that they're not attracted to. So
yeah, you need to say something.
I wish that was true, but it is not. When you,
it's not. Can I back to Sean?
So let me say this. So I'm thinking about the other. So I'm thinking about the other woman. So let's say now, fast forward, y'all. You know, you got him through that divorce. Now he meets somebody else that he's attracted to.
Yep.
He brings her around you. Mm-hmm. As the other woman, I'm coming in the relationship. I don't know that he once tried to, get with you romantically. Now that puts me in a vulnerable situation because now I'm hanging around you all. I'm thinking that you all are just friends, but he looking at you all, we all hanging out, and he might see something about you that he liked that day. So now he checking you out. I'm the new woman. How am I supposed to feel? I don't know any of this. I'm just coming in, I think it's unfair to the other woman. I mean, because she's thinking that this man is physically attracted to her and wanting to be with her, and that you all are strictly platonically friends, but in actuality, he was attracted to you sexually. So that puts her in a vulnerable situation. Now she hanging out with you all. I mean, it just seems a little off for me. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, that you have poured into this friendship and it shouldn't just end because he's in a new relationship. But as the other woman that might be coming into the relationship, I think it kind of is unfair for her to be around another woman where your man has been attracted to her, wanted to be with her sexually. That's problematic for me.
When you're in pain, you will latch on to anything that you think is going to stop the pain. It has nothing to do with that other person. You just don't want to be in pain anymore. So you don't have to be attracted to that person. And I mean, my friend is not on here, so I can get a little bit more into his business, but he was hitting all kind of stuff. Okay. It was not like, he would talk to me almost every day about, I can't believe I did such and such. Because he was in pain, and I knew that he was in pain, but at the same time, he grown. So all I could do was be you need to be careful. You need to stop doing this. But his male friends was encouraging him to be with this woman with 8 kids because she was making it easy, or to do. I mean, that was what he was doing to work through his emotions or whatever.
And you're a good friend, by the way. You're a good friend, because I just thought, I've been thinking since you said that. I know you said he was in pain and he was just basically going to hit anything that he could hit. But as his friend, I would have been offended. Like, I'm your friend. You're going to try to, ruin my life. You want to just basically use me in your moment of vulnerability and just, obviously it's going to get you emotionally attached and all messed up. Because he, like you said, if he really wasn't interested in a relationship and you all have intercourse, guess what? Now you might be all tied into the situation and messed up. So you're a good friend, because I would have been offended that he would even put me in that position. But so that's
I knew he wasn't thinking clearly.
I have a question.
I know him better than that.
We got 2 people with their hands up.
Go ahead.
Because I wouldn't mind talking about this too, because I know we said about guys, but I want to make sure we get to the 2 hands up before we get to you, Davida. Come on, Conda.
I got a tough question.
Well, we'll get to you in a minute, Richard. Let's let Seconda share her hand up.
Let Richard say what he got to say.
Okay, well, go ahead, Richard. She said you can go ahead.
I was going to say, who could help me figure out to hold back my gentlemanship, opening doors for women or men and helping them step out of their vehicle and help them sit down and stand up and stuff like that. Just being a gentleman. Did you catch it?
We did. Go ahead, Seconda. He made his statement.
Okay. First of all, I got it back to Sean up. I'm not about to leave my girl hanging. Whether you guys really realize it or not, what I'm hearing on my end is insecurity. And if that guy had, like Tashawn said, if she's been there or he's been there all this time, what is the problem? And how would that female that may not even be the wife even potentially know that he possibly was being vulnerable in a foolish moment? And how would he even know that? So for some things you don't reveal until they have earned that time. So the whole point is that you got to be secure within yourself. You got to know who you are. If I started being with somebody and he brought his best friend, and the best friend is a gorgeous model or whoever, she's just gorgeous, I'm not going to go into concerns of did they do this, did they do that? That's going to show that I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready to have a relationship. I'm not secure within myself. So there's going to be some areas in your life that you're going to have to learn how to work through and understand who you are. And if you're not ready to be with that person, if you're not at that point, you're not ready. You got to do some self. You got to learn yourself, because the stuff that we're talking about is that we should be past all these, because if you're not, then you're bringing baggage and luggage into the relationship and you're adding more drama on top of the drama.
No,
It's unnecessary drama.
I disagree with insecurity.
Okay,
you can know who you are, but if you discern something, and you say, okay, no, we need to set that boundary, because that's something you discern that has nothing to do with insecurity.
I agree.
Well, if you discern something that's different, that is different, then you have that discussion. And yes, you have boundaries, but you also have to understand that if you have a best friend that's been there for you, and then that person comes along and saying, I don't want you to be with him, you guys spend too much time, you have to know the difference between why. Is it really necessary? Am I spending too much time? Or they're saying, I want to be that person in your life. I mean, like Tashawn said, when you marry someone, you are the ride or die. You are the person that is the difference. I like what she said with the bills. I hope you find the money for that, compared to, no, this is my responsibility, whether I like my spouse or not. This is my portion. This is what I'm supposed to do. There's a difference in commitments.
Oh, and I definitely see what she means with that. But at the same token, there's actually, who's Tawana, you said you listen to Steve Harvey, so do I. Someone wrote in the other day. Yeah, she was this guy's best friend. He's been married all these years, and now she's pregnant by her married best friend. So that's what I'm saying. So it's like there are going to be certain boundaries that are going to have to be put in place. I don't care how long you've been friends with somebody.
Well, I just want to say something real quick about what Chuck put in the chat, because I think that was brilliant. Because he talks about there are more friendship soul ties with question marks in various states in there. There are then the less basically inviting the situation in because of all these friendship soul ties. And I get it, and I want to talk really quickly to Tawanda's point and some of the other points, from a guy's perspective. And I'm gonna be real. Half of my friends that are women, one of us did have a crush on the other one. That's how we started talking in the first place. That's how we, but then we just recognized there was a reason for us not to be together. And so we just kind of kept it a friendship. But yeah, there was probably something with almost every single person, either she liking me or me liking her. And if she liked me, it wasn't really that big of a deal. But if I, had, with her, then I would try to push her away a little bit and not try to get too close, because again, I'm a dude, dudes gonna do what they gonna do, if I don't keep myself under control. And like people said, at that point in the day where you're at that weak, vulnerable point, that, you're just trying to make sure that you don't end up there. And again, that's where maturity comes in. T, did you have anything you wanted to say? Because I know you had your hand up twice.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to mention is the fact that I just believe in respecting women. I had a best friend, and I do use past tense. I had a best friend. We were best friends for probably about 19 years. And it was truly nothing but best friends. It was, of course, a guy, and nothing but best friends. Nothing ever happened. Truly like a brother to me. I got married. And when I got married, I can honestly say my husband actually didn't have a problem with it. He was totally fine with it. I explained it in the beginning, had them meet in the beginning, totally okay with it. And then we got divorced, and my best friend ended up getting married. And his wife immediately had a problem with it. And as much as, we tried to explain the situation, I even spent a lot of time with her. She had a major issue with him having a best friend, knowing him for so long, and me knowing him better than I guess she at that time. And so out of respect, I just immediately stepped back because I just did not want to be brought into the confusion. I just didn't want to have nothing. I did not want my name in it if anything should happen to the marriage. So just out of respect for the woman, I just immediately stepped back. And so we are still friends, but when I say totally distance because I just did not, I just didn't want to disrespect her. So I do feel as though out of respect to the woman, we should take steps back. And it's just something that not only should we do it out of respect to the other woman, we would want that person to do it for us as well. So just in case. So that's the only thing I wanted to mention.
I agree with you, T. I think that you should be respectful, but I want everybody to think about if it's you and it's your man or your woman, what you're communicating when you're telling a person that, and it depends on the depth of the relationship. But I had a male friend who, when my daughter passed away, his girl didn't want him to come and pay his condolences. Okay. Because she felt like, I don't see how y'all could be friends. I had a friend who I went to his mother's funeral just as a friend to support, and she made a complete donkey behind out of herself because I was there. I wasn't around him. I was around all the other friends. I just happened to be the only female one. And she just really made a fool out of herself. And it was insecurity. We've been friends since we were 15 years old. And I mean, they had kids together. I mean, all of this stuff, nothing to do with anything else. And so it's not to say that it's going to destroy your relationship when you show that ugliness about yourself, but it is not showing yourself in a good light when you choose to ask somebody because you feel uncomfortable, because you're insecure, that you ask them to be less than an honorable person, less than a good person, because as Sean said before, the friend is the one that held them down. The friend is the one that was there for them, and you're telling them to disregard that person that helped them through difficult times because you feel uncomfortable. Now, if you tried, I think it was Danny that said something about, if it doesn't work out or you can't be friends. If you tried to have that person be a part of your life, your married life or whatever, like, okay, this is his friend, so I'm going to give them a chance, that's different. Because as Tiffany was saying, you have intuition. And that's why I was saying earlier, my husband with his female friends, yeah, come on over. Because if you can come over and you can act like a friend, then I got a better idea. And you gonna know that, I got this. This is my home. Okay. But if you can't come around, if you act in some kind of way, then that's gonna tell me something too. And I let my husband, because sometimes, spouses don't realize, yeah, they creeping on you. They looking for an opportunity. And as a spouse, you're supposed to be the one to give them that heads up to let them know, yeah, you vulnerable right here. You need to watch yourself with that one. And sometimes it's not even a opposite sex thing. Sometimes it's their girlfriend. But saying all that, you have to make sure that you're considering whether your relationships are making you a less than honorable person or a bad person, a person that you don't want to be. Because if it's you and it's somebody that that took care of you or that you looked out for, and then a situation comes up, are you really going to sit there and think, dang, you know what? Their father passed away, but because I'm married now, I'm going to just send them a card. I mean, you have to look at yourself in the mirror. and that person should accept you for who you are. Trust should be a part of your marriage. Trust should be a part of your friendship, whether it's, a friendship because in your marriage with your spouse, or whether it's, a friend that's not your spouse. If you can't trust each other, then every time they walk out the door, you wondering what's going on. Absolutely. I have friends that call me from the bathroom or only call me from the car, and they know that how I feel about that. And it's like, you know what, if you got to hide, then we don't need to be friends.
So say, yeah, don't call me. Don't
Right.
call me.
Exactly.
Let me say something to John. There's so many good points, because the thing is, I think on this, well, you my girl, but I think everybody
She done froze
has
up
their
like
different
we
life
can't see.
experiences, and that people are individual. Huh?
You froze up for a
What'd you say?
second.
You're okay now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So everybody has their own life experiences. And so you're saying that we should do this and we should do that, and you should be secure in yourself and things like that. Yes, those are ideals, but that's not necessarily real life, because we are imperfect people. And so we choose to be with people who may have problems with insecurity. And so the bottom line is that, and like I said, I will make it personal. If I have a friend that is my best friend of the opposite sex, and he gets with someone and marries someone, and I will say marriage because I really don't deal with, if it's just somebody they dating, I don't even take that person seriously until he put a ring on her finger, because she could come and go as the wind. Until he tells me she's a significant part in his life, then as his friend, I'm going to take notice. But if that is his wife, and I might feel like, oh, she doesn't want he and I to be friends anymore. Bottom line is, he chooses her. He chose to be with her with all of her insecurities. And so out of my respect for her as a woman, and out of my respect for his relationship that he has chosen to enter into, I will not interject myself. So, and same like Miss T, my best friend, like I said, I've known him 30 something years. When he chose to get married, I will say, if you ask me if that's my friend, yes, he'll always be my friend. But he has a wife, and I won't get involved in anything. I take myself out of it, because as a respect for another woman, I wouldn't even want there to be a question. Now, like I said before, he did step out of his marriage. So you know how, Tejan, you were talking about you want to be a friend to your spouse's friend. I mean, to your friend's spouse. So if you do develop that, where you're like, okay, yeah, bring over so we can develop a relationship too. In the instance for me, when he stepped outside of his marriage, me being the best friend, he told me. He didn't tell his wife. So is my loyalty to him, or is it to the both of them? Because it's like, okay.
You got to tell him to tell her that you need, just like I said before, you need to be talking to your wife. You need to tell her.
Right. But if I'm her friend too.
Well, I mean,
it's not your place to tell.
Why is it not my place?
Well, because it's not, it's he when somebody confides in you, and this is anybody, when somebody confides in you, that does not make it your business to tell. You don't have the right to tell somebody else's business. That's for them to tell. That's a breaking of a confidence, regardless of what the circumstances are. It's not yours to tell.
I'm saying that
push that
playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, I got
devil's advocate. You see what I'm saying?
You tell him, you need to tell her that you're supposed to tell when you care about somebody, you tell them the truth and you encourage them to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. And him telling her was the right thing.
Now there's a difference between you befriending the opposite sex's friend in the sense of trying to develop your own personal bond versus getting to know that individual so that you can squash any type of issues that could potentially arise because of being opposite sex. So your friendship is still to the initial person you met. And I agree with Tashawn, in that moment, you are, I would hope, encouraged for him to tell his wife. But then still keep in mind, that is their marriage to deal with.
Right.
Me personally, I'm the type of person, if you are in a marriage, if you're telling me about your marriage, we're having a conversation, but ultimately, I'm not trying to be Dr. Phil to be in the middle of it to make some type of amends. That's
Right.
not my role. My role is to be supportive to my friend. And in supporting my friend, like you said, in that instance, your role is to be supportive and letting them know that they are wrong.
Okay. Well, let me interject this after Sean, because and two things. First, we're at the time. Y'all know how it works. We're at 1 o'clock. Just it's always a heads up for those that have to go. But for everybody else that wants to hang out, y'all know y'all are welcome to hang out. We don't mind. I'll probably will split this video into two pieces because we're really not talking about should you get married? We have both totally gone left into friendship, soul ties, and being friends with married people, which I actually think is a really great topic. But I think we're discussing it enough here for it not to necessarily get its own video. So, just to let people know that we're just splitting it up right now, and a lot of this will probably really go online, just because of a lot of the stuff that we're talking about at this end part. I did have a question, like a devil's advocate question, but I think I've forgotten it now.
40 plus.
Yeah, you too, boo. When it comes back to me, I'll bring it back. But I'm sorry to interrupt you, Sean, but I always have to, once we get close, I always have to, kind of let everybody know. So go ahead.
Oh no, that was the end of it. I timed it perfectly.
Okay. Here's one for you, because you guys have heard me talk about best friends, and I always, in my opinion, your spouse is not your best friend. Y'all kind of heard me say that, and I kind of like how Tashawn took it and really blew it up to a whole nother level. And I like how you guys played out into it about the confidence of a friend and this, that, or the other. So what about, like I say, looking at it from that perspective, that you're not marrying your best friend? You can't tell them everything. You can't tell them always how you're feeling. You can't tell them what's really going on in your heart all the time, because sometimes what might be going on in your heart is that you want to cheat on them, or that, this thing is happening. So, how do you guys, or ladies or whatever, feel about that?
And
I
then the combination is going through that was with the old friends. They had a divorce, then you're invited to their renew marriage. So then you're still friends with couples, not just individual.
Okay, I got that. Love that, Mr. Richard. What was you gonna say, Mo?
Well, I was gonna say I've never been married before, so I don't have experience on it. But I guess listening to all this, I would just hope that I would marry my best friend, because I find if you don't, that is probably why so many marriages fail, because they're not marrying someone that they actually want to do life with, or that they can truly confide in. Like, why would I want to marry somebody and I can't tell you my secrets or what's really on my mind? And I just wanted to bring up this verse in John chapter 15, how Jesus calls us his friend and not his servants, because the plan has already been revealed to us. So if we take that example, that a friend is someone that you reveal things to, you're planning things with this person. That's why Jesus, he don't even call us servants. He calls us his friend. That's it. If you want to look that up, it's John chapter 15, verses 12 through 15. And I took that as like, wow, that's true. A friend is someone that I'm going to reveal things to, that I'm going to plan things with. And I feel like that's why my 15-year relationship didn't work, because he ended up being someone that I felt I couldn't really talk to. So I knew I couldn't marry this person. So I would just hope, if I ever do get married, I'm able to marry someone that I can call my best friend. Because if not, I feel like that is probably why most marriages fail. And for Tishawn, I like that girl, she does sound insecure. And if she was if as his wife, I would actually hope she would have said, well, Tishawn, girl, I want to come over there too. Because he loves you, I want to love you too. And I want to comfort you in your hour of grievement. So to me, yes, she sounds like someone who was insecure. But I would hope if she wasn't insecure, she actually would have went over there with him and helped him console you, So I do. I think people just struggle with their own insecurities. But for me, I would just hope if I ever do get married, I can marry someone that I would want to call my best friend.
Mo, thank you, Mo. I appreciate that. And my husband, who also left, we lost a child. I wasn't even single. I wasn't even a single friend. So, but I wanted, Seconda's about to say something. I just wanted to say something about what Seconda was saying earlier about the insecurity. And that's this. The reason why it's relevant to the topic today about marriage, and the reason why it's relevant to, everything we're talking about, is that nobody can make you secure but you.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, I don't care how much that person that, your significant other does. If you're insecure, that's something they can't fix. You have to work on that and figure out where it comes from and how to come out of that. They can't do it. They can, talk to you all day long. They can text you all day long. They can do everything with you, be with you all the time. And you still like, you took too long when you went to the store. I mean, that you're going to, there's nothing that they can, because it's in you. It's not coming from outside. It's coming from inside. And so that's something that they can help you deal with it, but you have to be the one to deal with that. And you can sabotage your relationship by being that way, because sometimes people feel like, well, if you're going to just always accuse me, then why am I working so hard? And they become complacent, or they actually do something because everybody wants to be trusted by the person that cares about them. And when you don't feel trusted, you feel rejected, because you're like, well, what are you trying to say about me? Like, what do you think that I would do that? What do you think about me as a person? So that security, that's something that we have to take on individually, as our own, thing we have to do for ourselves, and be honest with ourselves and say, you know what, I do have an insecurity issue. I do need to address it, or this makes me feel insecure. And so I need to figure out how to deal with that, and tell your significant other, you know what, I'm okay most of the time, but this particular thing makes me uncomfortable. Yeah. And, and that's, that part, Mo, you was talking about, being honest with each other and telling each other. The hard part, when the rubber meets the road, is life happens. And sometimes you can't talk to your spouse best friend, because it may be that the stress is that they're going through something and they can't be there for you because you're being there for them. And so then who holds them together so that they can be strong for you? So it's just, those just the things that happen in life. That's just a part of reality.
I don't think that that's actually insecurity. I think that that I just really truly believe that your spouse should be your friend. I mean, because I believe that that's how you build a very strong foundation in a marriage. But and if I was the friend of the guy and he got married, I would do like T said. I would back away and let him flourish the relationship that he has with this new person. So out of respect for that woman, I would back away if I was on the other side, because I would just want, as his friend, to see him be able to build a strong foundation with the woman that he's married to or dating or whatever. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tawana. It's not a matter of friends being insecurity. That's not what Seconda was saying, or what I'm saying. It's not an equate thing. What I'm saying is that if anybody that says men and women can't be friends, that's insecurity. That's not reality, because men and women are friends all the time. I mean, you got men and women who are a woman who their best friend is the best man to her because that's her best friend, or vice versa, and they've been friends all their lives. But I mean, our kids grew up together, things like that. So what's supposed to happen when you get with somebody where you see, okay, everybody's married, So because you're just opposite sex, y'all can't be friends, even though they're madly in love with their spouse, but y'all are friends, and it's just that's not reality to say that can never happen. And
well,
so,
like as Jay said, like most of his friends that are women, he was attracted to at some point, or they were attracted to him. And so I'm just saying, it's human nature to be attracted to that other person. So why even put your new prospective spouse, in that situation? And I'll get personal with it. We have a family friend in my family, my uncle's best friend, actually, and he has tried to talk to one of my relatives for I don't know how long, but we all call each other families. He's like an uncle. But now he got married. Well, or actually he got engaged first. He has since then gotten married, but he has been trying to talk to one of my relatives for forever and always liked her. And she was like, no, we're family. Well, he got engaged. How come he was in the kitchen with my relative and was like, yeah, I got engaged. We like, congratulations. He was like telling the relative that he was interested in, and saying to her, oh, you lost out. That shows me, at that point, that he would have just been looking for an opportunity if that person had given him a shot. So basically, I guess what you would say is that his wife is second choice, because he literally said that to my relative while he was engaged to the other person, and told her, oh, you lost out or whatever, blah, blah, blah. That to me is demonstrative of the fact that he was always looking for an opportunity for a way to get in there and date my relative. And so of course, thank God my relative is respectful. So obviously she was like, you're good. You got this, you're fine. When we actually met her and he brought her over, we respected her and embraced her into our family. Now, we haven't really been seeing him now because, as I said, he's in a marriage now. But to her point, here she is coming over, not knowing that he's attracted to my relative and saying things that are inappropriate. So I just think that for her, it's a sticky situation. But if my relative wasn't respectful, that could have went a totally left, totally sideways.
See, I think part of it, and this is one of the things, and I think you guys are kind of maybe arguing at this point over just the semantics of it, is that you just have to recognize what your own personal limits are, and then set up limits for yourself. Because at the end of the day, if there's somebody that I'm really attracted to, and I know I'm in a vulnerable place, I'm going to put up a lot of traps for myself. And barriers and walls, to keep that person away from me. But if I know, okay, well, more than likely I'll be fine around this other person and it's not that big of a deal, then I might not do it as much. And I think you have to kind of know yourself, a little bit. So I'm kind of agreeing with both sides, because I think that you do need to be able to keep your friends. I know I was able to keep my friends. But at the same time, like I said, almost all of them, were not in the city. I would talk to them probably once a month, if not once every 2 or 3 months, once I got into my marriage. And I'll even be, as we all say, be transparent, because I recently had a friend, and me and her talked. I mean, we talked all the time. She was married, I was married. And me and her talked all the time. But after I got my divorce, I pulled back from talking to her a little bit. And then when she told me she was going to get a divorce, I pulled back from talking to her. And a lot of that was because I didn't want to be any kind of catalyst to encourage her, along that path. I wanted things to kind of turn her around and send her the other way. And I even told her, for women out here, it can be hard, for her age and, and all those other types of things. And I was trying to, in a lot of ways, discourage her. And I think she kind of understood that too. And right as the closer she got to her divorce date, the more we both just stopped talking. And I think, because in the back of both of our minds, we were such good friends, and she is attractive, that it was like this easy hop. you know, and she needs time to heal. All these things need to happen. But my point that I'm trying to make is I think that we both were putting limits there. We both were putting walls because we understood that this thing could exist, that it could happen. And I think that people have to be mature about it because it's not going to happen for everybody. You know, there's some, you know, people out there that, you know, people might say, you know, Davita might say, or whoever might say that they're down to get with the ugly dude. I'm just sorry if you're my friend and you ugly, I'm probably not going to get with you. You got to be on the cute side.
That's why I won't get with you because you ugly.
Oh, thank you, Sakanda. Man, you so cute too. That's the problem. No, I'm just kidding.
But that's a good point, Jay. I mean, and I mean, it's a lot of women on here. So I mean, I had a friend. I went to California to see my family, and a friend of mine. We went over his friend's house, and his sister was there, and she didn't know me, so she was, you know, like down for my friend's wife. Like, okay, does she know that y'all over here together? What's the situation? Blah blah blah. And so once she got, you know, once we got to talking, she realized, she was like, "Oh, you cool." And I'm like, "Yeah, you know, we're just friends. It's nothing else going on." And so she asked me, "Why have you never done anything? I mean, you guys have known each other for 33 years and you've never kissed, held hands, nothing?" "No, because we were just friends." And she said, "Well, why not?" And I said, "Because you can't get with everybody that you're attracted to." You know, I mean, you can try, I guess, but that's not the type of chick I am. So, you know, it's like, it's kind of being a little unrealistic to be like, "Oh, well, if they're attractive," well, it's a lot of attractive people. But you know, you can't be like, "Yeah, what you," every time you see somebody attractive, you're like, "Yeah, what you got going on?" And and if you know the person and you know, like, you know what, you are a lot of fun as a friend, but I wouldn't want to have you full time. We can't do nothing full time because you know, we would not get along. I don't have to deal with that. I don't have to wake up to that. So
Can I?
Go ahead.
No. I apologize. Go ahead.
No, I'm done. That's all I was just gonna say. You know, you can't get with everybody. Everybody that's attractive is not, you know, on your list.
Right. And you know, the importance of being secure within yourself is because let's say if I'll just pick somebody, Sean is my spouse, and he brings a woman that is just phenomenally somebody's ideal wife, but we could be opposite. Sometimes people don't realize that best friends have an opposite of attraction type of friend compared to what your wife may be. It doesn't mean that it's the compatible. You know how you're saying, like, sometimes people feel like, well, why don't you try to get together? No, we're only compatible on a best friend level. Him and his wife are compatible on a friendship and a marriage level. We're just on the best friend level compatible, you know, and opposite could be totally opposite. She could be, you know, someone that's 4'11" and you're 5'11", and you know, and you wear stilettos and she wears Chucks all day long. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes people don't understand that's why they're not together also, is because that's not who I want. I want a best friend. I didn't want that as a spouse, that person as a spouse. That's not who I have. And then when we do get married, we're saying, well, I don't want them to, you know, some people are saying, well, I prefer for them not to have that person as their best friend anymore. You know, that's very hurting to a degree, especially if that relationship has been healthy and been very supportive. And who are you going to talk to if you can't speak to your spouse? You know, yes, it's nice and grand and dandy if you can have a best friend, because in one of my marriages, he was my best friend. But guess what? I also found out that I was not the one that was all at fault when it comes out, even though he was my best friend. So people are still going to do certain things that they want to do, but you're still going to turn to somebody else that you may trust and hoping that they will be non-biased and tell you the truth. You know, and speak on both of your behalf and say, look, this is what I know about you, and maybe you're taking this the way that opposite, and maybe what they're really communicating, or this is what I've observed about when you two are around. So you know, picking and choosing your battles wisely. You know, my question, I know that Mo said she would hope to marry her best friend. If you found a gentleman that was, you know, dotted his I's, crossed all his T's, but you guys weren't best friends, would you still marry him?
At that point, I would actually make him my best friend. I mean, if I'm intimate with him like that, and I decide that I want to be his wife, I would say, babe, you know, you're my best friend, right? You know, I would just it doesn't have to be a pressure. Like, it doesn't have to be so serious. Like, I would hope, like, whoever I marry, I can be playful with him like that and be honest with him like that and just say, babe, you know, I'm so grateful for the friends that I do have in my life, but I want you to know right now, since I'm marrying you, you're my best friend. So I'm about to tell you stuff and you just gonna have to deal with it even if you don't want to hear it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it should be as hard as people make it. Because when I see so many marriages fail, even with my parents, I truly think it's just because they weren't compatible like that. They didn't make each other their best friend. You know, my dad chose to keep his friends. My mama chose to keep her friend. And it's like, you have to, like, I think you said, Jay, Sheila talked about it last week. I missed it. But she said that marriage is something that you got to just be willing to give yourself away to. You know, it really is a sacrifice. And I would just hope I would make him my best friend. let's just put it like that. You know, I would just keep it real with him and just try to make him.
Yeah, I mean, real quick, I'm gonna say this, you know, Secunda, and I'll just say it real quick because I truly believe, like I say, what Sheila said about just giving yourself away. Because the truth is like, if you look at your parents and what you're saying, they were holding their own world. They were still in their own world. They were married, but they were still in their own world. They hadn't given anything up. You know, in my marriage, what destroyed it was that it wasn't both of us giving. You know, and what I run into with most people's relationships is that they can make a friend really quick. I'll be real. You know, there's a lot of even women on this call that, you know, I'm good friends with. I can make a friend really quick. That's not the issue. Okay, and like Tashawn said, I think Tashawn said this earlier, and if I got it wrong, I'm sorry. But there's a lot of times where I might be able to call Tashawn up, and me and her might be able to talk forever about a point. Okay, but that's still just us talking about that point, and we're vibing on that point. So that's a little bit different than being married and being in that different type of situation. So I think when you're giving and both people are giving, that is, like I say, what is needed to keep the relationship going, because you're going to go up and down. You're going to be going up and down. And best friends, it sounds good on paper, but it's like my best friend right now, the guy, because me and him have been friends for 30 years, and he is a guy, but if he magically turned into a woman, I would not want to marry him. Because he has turned into a selfish jerk. And I get on him all the time about the issues he has with his wife, because his wife is the giver and he is the taker.
Wow.
And I tell him, I say all the time, I say, in your relationship is failing because we're not failing, but you know, when he was having problems, I was like, because you need to give more. You need to give more. You need to give more. Okay, see, I'm best friends with him, but I would not be able to be married if he was a woman, a beautiful woman, the most beautiful woman in the world. I could not be married to him because he's not a giver.
Right.
Okay, it is the giving. That's why, you know, so Mo, yes, you can find this person, y'all can travel, y'all can love the same movies, y'all can do all of this. Trust me, I had that. Okay, but at the end of the day, it's like, I'm giving XYZ, what are you giving?
Yeah.
And at first you overlook it, you move past it, you say, oh, this person is my friend, they're helping me this, but then you start to think in the back of in your mind, if they loved me, they would give to me.
Yeah.
They will recognize that this is hurting me. Okay, and friends, you know, like, again, like it was said before, and I think again, Tashawn said it, we could be friends, like me and you, Mo, we could be friends, we could be best friends. And then you be like, Jay, I need $1,000. Oh, Mo, I love you, you know, boom, hope you find that 1,000.
Mhm.
But as Chuck said, who's gone, when you are married and you cleave, oh no, Tashawn talked about, you cleave to that person. This is something totally different. This is beyond best friends.
Yeah.
Because now your success is my success. So if you $1,000 in debt, I'm $1,000 in debt.
Amen.
We
Amen.
both got it going on now. We both got this issue that we have to solve. So to me, it's almost like, after listening to everybody, it's almost like cleaveship is like 10 times higher than best friendship. Best friend sounds good until you get to that cleaveship. You know, and Jesus and God are cleave shipping to us. You know, to the point they're giving blood for us. So that was the only point I wanted to say real quick. And I know Mr. Sean had his hand up. So Sean, you want to say something real quick?
Yeah, I'm actually going to speak on just a little bit about what you were just saying instead of my other point. But Scripture teaches that even further, because the Bible tells us that when we leave our parents and go to our spouse, that we become one. When you're with a friend, you're still two individual people.
No, I'm definitely, I got that. So Danny asks, for anybody out there, when does that cleaving start though? Does it magically start when you say I do?
When you start feeling responsible for the other person.
You feel
that's when it starts. That means you're cleaving. When you start feeling responsible for them and their issues, and we're trying to figure this out, that's what, that's what cleaving is.
But Tashawn,
but isn't that partially what we're talking about though? Because I mean, until you actually say I do, that person could be your best friend. That person could be something short of being, the person that you have said I do to. So I'm just trying to understand what we're talking about relative to how much of giving ourselves away we're talking about.
I think. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to answer her question but you can. I was going to say that what you said, because we have to be mindful about when you're a giver and you're saying, what you're saying, Tashawn, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when we start stepping into their world, making their problem our problem, we can do that just as human beings as being part of a good friendship. And when Danny said, when do you start cleaving? I believe is when you start becoming in agreement of one, as in this is what we're shooting for. That's my view.
I agree. And I just to make a distinction, because you're right, Sakanda, if you are a giver, you can do that. And I mean, I've definitely done that. But here's the deal. If you're giving yourself away, there's no limitation on that commitment, because I mean, we got friends, but there's boundaries. Like, you know what, I'll help you to this extent, but I'm not getting ready to not pay my bills because your bill ain't paid, or there's a boundary you set with your friends of how much you're willing to give, unless you're codependent, of course. And I mean, that's a whole other conversation. But in a healthy relationship, you say, all right, and part of it is because you're trying it out. You're testing the waters of, okay, what would it take for me to really become one with this person? How does this feel to me that, okay, we're doing this together? And sometimes it's, okay, how is it going to be received for us to figure it out together versus me just giving you my advice? So that's I think what the difference is. And when it's just a friendship versus, okay, we're trying to figure out like how we would work together as a team, how we're going to be able to get through life as a team versus, oh yeah, girl, or yeah, dude, look, this is what happened. What you think? That's a different level of commitment, you know. And I mean, and that's why some of the things I say, like, okay, we're like family. Like I had a friend that, you know, we fell out because of this situation. The girl that he was with had a problem with me. Y'all can't be friends, blah blah blah. And then when it didn't, and we stopped speaking, I like everybody said, I removed myself from the situation. Like, okay, I'm not going to be the reason why this doesn't work out, because I already knew it wasn't going to work out because I know him too well. And she was just crazy. So I just stepped out of it. You know, I just stepped out of it. Like, okay, fine, no problem. One day he showed up on my doorstep after he got, you know, back from his National Guard boot camp, blah, blah, blah. And he needed a place to lay his head for a couple of weeks. So he found a place to live. And because of our bond, because that's my brother, I ain't speak to him, but I was like, here's some sheets. You know, because that's my brother. And
Right.
if you need me, I'm gonna be there. I ain't gotta like you, but you know, I love you. So I'm gonna make sure that you're all right. But yeah, but at the same token, I wasn't gonna, like, you know, like, here's some deposit money, or I'm not doing all of that. You gotta figure that out yourself, you know. You save your money while you're sleeping on my couch, but I'm not getting ready to set you up though. I'm not getting ready to, you know, get into all of that. So it's the boundaries that makes the difference, in my opinion, when it's a friendship versus like, oh yeah, because you married, there ain't no boundaries. You all in.
Danny, I think she was on that ask about the magic part. I would think that whole magic part is when you actually start to fall in love with that person. Because like Tayshawn was saying, you'll have your back for your friends till a certain point, but you'll know it when you start to, that magic part is when you're like, you start looking at a person a little bit more differently. And it just becomes on a deeper level, and it turns into actual love. I feel like, and when you both can agree, like, I'm in love with you and you are someone that I feel that I can be with for the rest of my life, then that's when that cleaving should start. But like, if you're just dating, you know, because you want to date, be social, get out the house and stuff like that, then no, you don't have any responsibility towards that person, no cleaving, none of that. You know, you're just having fun, you know. But I feel like that it magically happens when you start to fall in love. At least I know from experience with me. Once I realized that I was in love, that's when I wanted to take on that responsibility and helping him and going the extra mile. So I think you got to be in love, you know, feel like you're in love before you can start doing that.
I'm gonna say something real quick on that. I agree in the beginning that it needs to be probably the in love stuff, but in love is gonna go after a certain amount of time. And there's actually another level of love. You know, people have a million different names for it. I would just say the same type of, you know, not to be gross, but it's the same type of love that you have for a sibling or a child. And it's basically that love that never ends. Even though
that unconditional love.
Basically, because that's the point. And because I know, like, even with my ex, I still pray for her. I still want the best for her. I literally want the best for her. I don't want anything to happen to her. I want her to have the best life ever, because once you start loving that way, I just don't trust people that say that it goes away. I just don't. You know, if I run into a woman that's been divorced or has been in a long relationship and she's like, well, I don't love him no more. Or like, you never did. Because if you can tell me you don't love him, you never did. Now you can protect yourself and you can say, I'm not going to deal with him anymore. But, you know, once you get into that unconditional love, then you love him forever. And like, I love my ex-wife. I still love her. But the bottom line is, in my mind, she was hurting me. And she was hurting a situation, so I had to save myself. But that does not necessarily mean that I don't love her. So I think that being in love goes up and down. In a relationship, you have to remember that that's that part when I'm talking about you have to work it. you have to work it to keep your spouse in love with you. You know, you have to come up with romantic ideas. You have to come up and try to work inside their Enneagram and whatever their personality needs. You have to do things together. You have to continue to be intimate, because if you don't do all that, that in love gonna go away. You know, and what's gonna sustain you is the ability for you to continue. And like I said, we and her dated, the dating plus the marriage was about 27 years. So that's a heck of a long time, you know, to care about somebody. And that's why I bring that up, because it is not going to sustain just by being in love. Because there was a whole lot of times that I fell out of love.
No, I was saying like the cleaving part, when you want to actually start taking responsibility for that person. First, you do gotta fall in love. And then once you decide to get married, yes, that's when you work out that love. Like you said, it's about the giving. But I feel like I wouldn't want to cleave to nobody or even hold anybody responsible until I realized I was in love with them, you know, and then the rest of the stuff will follow, you know, staying that unconditional love.
No, I agree. I mean, that's cool. Mashawn had her hand up, Sakanda.
Hello, y'all.
Hello.
I'm hearing bits and pieces because I'm trying to work. Don't I have a lot of nerve? But is that the assumption that you are in love with the person you married? Because how do we know that Adam and Eve loved each other? Because that was a commandment from God for them to cleave to each other. And how do we know that people do love each other at marriage? We can't assume every marriage started out with people in love with each other, because there are still arranged marriages, and those people come to love each other during the marriage. They take it as a covenant, as an agreement, as a commitment, not this love thing that was created in the early 1800s that is part of the problem as to why marriage is an issue these days. There's so many things, because love is fickle. Love is fickle.
Well, I think that's what Jay was just trying to say, is that real love isn't. Real love is lasting. People mix up like and love. You cannot like a person. Like, I got 9 siblings. Some of them I don't like, but I love them because that's my sister or that's my brother. But it's not, you know, if you really love, that's a commitment that you've made to care about a person beyond just, you know, oh, I hope you don't get hit by a bus. I mean, that's caring for someone. And I think that, to your point, LaShawn, you're right. When it's arranged, or when you're told that, or it's decided without the emotion in it, that you're going to be in this committed monogamous relationship with somebody, that's based on something that is greater than just how you felt or the dynamics of how the relationship evolved. But what Mo was saying, if it's going to develop organically, like, okay, we're going through things together, we're getting to know each other, things like that. When you start caring about a person beyond just when you're with them or just general sense, but you start becoming invested in their well-being and their success, in where their life is going. If you see your paths merging, where, okay, we want the same things out of life, we can be a good team together, that's where you get the cleaving and the love and the development of, okay, this is more than just, oh, you're somebody to have fun with, or, you know, to hang out with, or just to have a good convo with.
I want to answer the part about Adam and Eve. I'm willing to believe that Adam and Eve had love because God handcrafted this woman for him. If we can't trust that God knows how to give us what we need and what we want, we're in a very dangerous situation for ourselves personally before we get to another individual. And Scripture even teaches us what good thing would he withhold from us? So therefore, I tend to believe that it is God who gave that first unction of what he would have desired. I don't believe God would have given him somebody he wasn't attracted to. And then also to keep in mind that a part of their knowledge base, a part of our knowledge base comes out of after they had eaten of the tree of good and knowledge. So there are some parts of what we deal with in every area of our life, including our romantic life, that God had already fixed for us. But when man entered into sin, is where we have the complacency of knowing, okay, what is this life over here instead of what God gave me.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So I just want to establish, and you guys may beg to differ. In love is based off of emotions because that comes and goes. It's just like the weather. But love should always be established no matter what. Like Tashawn says, like all of us could agree. I have a sister named Felicia, and literally we tell her bye, Felicia. But we can barely handle Felicia, but I love her. She gets on my nerves. I can't stand her to a certain point. My mom can't even stand her at times. But then, they have like a love-hate relationship. But if something would happen, or if you would speak something wrong about Felicia to me, I'm going to get my knife out and cut you about my sister. Because I feel that way doesn't mean that you get to get on that bandwagon. I didn't welcome you in on that bandwagon to treat my sister that way, So that's one thing, is that people have to understand being in love is an emotional thing, because not once did God tell us to stay in love, as in being in love, but to love each other no matter what. Love covers a multitude of sins. We have to remember that. And a marriage is also what some people don't understand. They look at it as, oh, I got a lifetime commitment. I got a life partner for sex and company and talking and blah, blah, blah. Marriage will reveal what you have never realized that you had in you, or didn't even it'll dig up things. It will reveal, it will test you. You will go through you will become Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You'll become Daniel in the lion's den. You will become Ruth. You'll become Esther. It'll bring out some stuff in you, and it'll challenge you. And it's all to help strengthen you and to build up that relationship so that you can be that ride or die couple. And that no matter what, I have invested in this person, even though they did not flush the toilet or put the toilet seat down, or even though she won't sit up here and make up the bed or fix me breakfast, and I've asked her how much I love that when she does it, it'll show, this person, the account with them is greater than closing the account out. You'll count the cost. You'll consider things better than just throwing your hands up over like selfish things. Like how you said, Jay, your friend, he's the taker, but the wife is the giver. And it's sad to see. And there's a lot of that goes on. And they're like, well, they like doing that. No, some people don't like being always the giver. It's just could be habit, or feel like, I'm in this marriage and this is what I got to do. And that person may not recognize that, hey, I have a negative account. I always look at marriage as a checking account, a relationship, not just marriage, but relationships of
I agree with you. I don't know your phone.
But if you're making more withdrawals than you have, it's going to become negative, and it's not going to be worth anything. I got a friend, real good friend. He's getting married in September. So I said, okay, so September is when we break up. And he goes, well, we'll never break up. And I said, and it was more so I was saying like, okay, I'll step away, even though we're just friends. Cause I tried trying that. And he was like, why would you stop being my friend? Why would you stop? So that tells me that, okay, it's not a problem for you to have friends during a marriage type of situation. Also, I just wanted to also say something to Ms. Tawana is that person is who they are, but don't have it in the back of your mind that everybody is the same way, because that's when, that's where prejudice comes from, is prejudging. Yes, we are all prejudiced, but we have to also treat people the way we want to be treated and accordingly. And we have to remember that just because that person had a crush and they may have not gotten over your relative as much compared to, when they got engaged. But if your relative would have been willing, then they probably would have been together, or he wouldn't be engaged to somebody else right now. But just because that person's behavior was displayed in front of you in that form or fashion doesn't mean that everybody else's behavior is the same way.
Yeah, I mean, but that's one of the things that we study, and that's why we talk about it.